Hey guys, welcome back to another English video of the channel. Today we are going to be talking about punctuation basics. So before we begin, I'm just going to give you my normal key points. My first thing for you guys is to label your clauses. So there are two main types of clauses we are going to be looking at: independent clauses and dependent clauses. And I recommend that if you're debating some answer choices, it's always best to label your clauses to know what you're working with, because that will naturally eliminate some answer choices. My second key point is to read, the sentence out loud to yourself, because we have this innate tendency to understand things kind of without thinking about it, right? We just think about things when we're speaking, right? We don't think about if we use a colon, a comma, right? We just it comes naturally to us. We pause in the right moments, we do the right things. But because of that natural tendency, it becomes hard for us when we, write, to decide what we should be using. And so if you read it out loud to yourself, you'll kind of maybe help yourself figure out, oh, I need to pause here. That means I need a comma, right? Something like that. So reading out loud to yourself is never a bad thing, I think. Okay, so before we get into the different types of punctuation, I'm just going to explain what an independent clause is and what a dependent clause is. So an independent clause is something that can stand on its own. And that means that it has a noun or like a subject, right? So it has a verb, so an action, right? And lastly, it can stand on its own. There's no required context for this thing to be said. Now, a dependent clause is something that cannot stand on its own. It requires some sort of context. It requires either a noun, either an action, like a verb, or just some context, or it starts with a transition, which kind of requires it to be dependent on something else. But the point is, this cannot stand on its own. And again, if you just read it out loud to yourself, you'll realize, wait, this sentence can't stand on its own. It's requiring something. It's something that we understand innately. So those are the two differences between the two types of clauses you should know. So now let's get into our different types of punctuation. So firstly, we have periods, and these are used to combine two independent clauses, right? So if I say the dog is playing, right? Here I have the subject, which is the dog, and I have an action, like a verb, right? Playing. And so we have a independent clause here, right? The dog is playing can stand on its own. If I tell you the dog is playing, you'll understand that, right? So let's say I want to add another thing. I can say the dog will get ice cream, right? The dog, again, we have the subject, will get, right? That's our verb. And the sentence can stand on its own, right? The dog will get ice cream. So the dog is playing can stand on its own, and the dog will get ice cream can stand on its own. So in order to join those two together, we can just use a period. Those are what periods are used for. And that's the simplest way to join two independent clauses together. The only thing is they both need to be independent. You cannot join an independent clause and a dependent clause with a period. In that case, you need other things. Okay, so let's go on to commas. So let me just get some of that out of the way. Okay, so commas, we have multiple uses. So first thing is that we can use them for conjunctions. So when we use them to join two independent clauses together, we can use a conjunction and, a comma and a conjunction, okay? And the easy way to remember conjunctions, I think I said this in another video, is the acronym FAN boys, right? This gives us our common words, joining words. So for, and, nor, but, or, and yet. These are common combining words. And these are probably what you need to remember. Oh, and I guess so as well. Fanboy is with so. So these are what you need to remember. And now, how do we use them? So let's use our previous example. And I say the dog the dog is playing. Now, instead of a period, I'm going to do a comma, and I'll write the word and. The dog will get ice cream. Right? That is another perfectly viable way to combine two independent clauses by saying the dog is playing, comma, and that's our conjunction. The dog will get ice cream. We are combining two independent clauses in a loud way. So what else can we use commas for? Well, the other uses of commas you need to know are for lists. So I'm just going to go up here. We can use commas for lists. So if I'm listing out common things, like let's say I want to go to Berlin, Paris, and London, right? Here, I'm listing out cities. So we split that up with commas. Like, think about it. When we talk naturally, I will say, I want to go to Berlin, Paris, and London, right? I'm not going to say, I want to go to Berlin, Paris, and London, right? You need that natural pause there. And that's what a comma basically means. A comma is a pause. So by seeing this, we're basically, telling people to pause. And another thing is lists, when they contain more than two items, you are going to put a comma in front of the and. So it's not going to be Berlin, Paris, and London. It's going to be Berlin, Paris, comma, and London, right? So whenever you have three or more in a set, in a list, you need a comma in front of the and. Okay, and then our final use of commas is for non-important information. So if I want to say, I met a nice woman today. Woman today. And then I can say her name was Nancy. By doing this, right, I'm basically saying, oh, her name was Nancy. That's not important. I can say, I met a nice woman today. Her name was Nancy, right? By doing that, I'm basically saying this isn't important. This is in parentheses. It is non-essential information. So if I say, I bought an ice cream it had two flavors. Right, for $5. Right, by doing this, I'm saying I bought an ice cream for $5, right? That's the important part. Basically, if you can cut this part of the sentence out and it still stands on its own, you can put commas around it. So I'm saying I bought an ice cream for $5, and then if I want to, I'm saying, okay, the flavors is an essential information. So I can say I bought an ice cream, it had two flavors for $5, right? That's kind of like a side thing that I'm just putting in for additional information. Okay, now apostrophes. So apostrophes, there's not much. It's just that apostrophes can be used to signal ownership of something. So if I say Nancy, we'll use Nancy again. Nancy's cats are cute, right? Basically, this comma is saying that it's hers. Because if I just write Nancy's, then that could mean plural Nancy's, right? That could mean more than one Nancy. By putting this comma here, I'm indicating that it's Nancy's cats, the cats that she owns, her cats, right? Now, the other thing we can use apostrophes for are our special combinations of words. So we can say isn't, right? That is equal to is not, couldn't, for example. That's equal to could not, right? So when we combine two words, like in this way, we use an apostrophe to signal that. So that's all that for apostrophes. Now we have semicolons and colons. So semicolons are another way to join two independent clauses together. We use a semicolon between them. So sticking with our example from before, the dog is playing, the dog is playing, semicolon, what did I say earlier? I said the dog will get ice cream. The dog will get ice cream. Right? So by putting the semicolon here, this acts like a period. It also acts like a comma conjunction. The three of these are pretty much interchangeable. It's just, preference and what you're trying to convey, like the mood, the tense, like the overall feel of the piece is, I guess, those are like changes. But from a grammatical standpoint, all three of these are equally correct. So, for example, in a multiple choice question, when you see, I can replace this with a comma and a semicolon, then that's when you know that 99% of the time, both of those answer choices are wrong because they are, from a grammatical standpoint, equally grammatically correct. So if there are two options which would kind of be both grammatically correct, you can know that they are both wrong. Okay, and our last thing is colons. So colons can be used to introduce lists, right? Introduce lists. Colons aren't very important. They can just be used to kind of like introduce another thing. And then for semicolons, when you have a complex list, we call them, where we have lists with like commas inside of them, right? We can't separate them with commas anymore. So we're going to separate them with semicolons. So that's not a major thing. I don't think that's very important, but just so you know. Okay, let's look at some example problems. So first we have read the sentence. The Colosseum in Rome, Italy, which is considered one of the new 7 wonders of the world, is the largest amphitheater ever built and could hold more than 50,000 spectators. Which edit should be made to correct the sentence? Delete the comma after Rome. Well, the Colosseum in Rome, Italy, right? We naturally pause there, so I don't think that's a very smart answer, right? Insert a comma after Italy. The Colosseum in Rome, Italy, which is considered one of the new 7 wonders of the world, is the largest amphitheater ever built and can hold more than 50,000 spectators. Well, is this really essential information? Which is considered one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Is that essential in the sentence? Could we cross this out, right? Let's try. The Colosseum in Rome, Italy, is the largest amphitheater ever built and could hold more than 50,000 spectators. That part of the sentence doesn't have to be there for the sentence to stand on its own, right? And how do we eliminate non-essential information? By putting a comma in the front and back. And we already have a comma here, so if you put a comma after Italy, that becomes non-essential information. So it sounds like a pretty good answer choice. I'm going to underline it. Delete the comma after world. Well, let me just, okay. Well, deleting this comma kind of says that this is essential information now, right? By deleting that comma. And it just sounds really long. The Colosseum in Rome, Italy, which is considered one of the new 7 wonders of the world, is the largest amphitheater ever built and could hold more than 50 spectators, right? When I'm saying that, I'm kind of running out of breath, right? There needs to be a pause there somewhere. So we know that this doesn't really make sense. And H, insert a comma after built. The Colosseum in Rome, Italy, which is considered one of the new 7 wonders of the world, is the largest amphitheater ever built and could hold more than 50,000 spectators. Well, if we think about it, this is basically a list, right? Largest amphitheater ever built, that's one attribute, and could hold more than 50,000 spectators. That's another attribute. So this is basically a list, right? Now, when we have a list of 2 things, we don't put a comma in front of the and. And so putting a comma after built just wouldn't make sense. So by process of elimination, the correct answer is F. Okay, and let's keep going to the last question. So let's just read it. In September 2016, the National Museum of African American History and Culture opened as part of the Smithsonian Institution. The museum is already the Smithsonian's third most popular site. Experts say that they expect this newest Smithsonian facility to welcome nearly 4 million visitors a year. The museum features more than 30,000 objects, including Muhammad Ali's boxing gloves and a dress sewn by Rosa Parks. A commemorative copy of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was written in 1863 during the presidency of Abraham Lincoln, is also available for viewing at the museum. Which sentence should be revised to correct a run-on? So let's just look at all the sentences. Sentence 1. In September 2016, the National Museum of African American History and Culture opened as part of the Smithsonian Institution. So if we look at this, right, in September 2016, the National Museum of African American History and Culture opened as part of the Smithsonian Institution, right? This is kind of just reading it out loud, right? It sounds a little unnatural, right? The National Museum of African American History and Culture opened as part of the Smithsonian Institution, right? The museum is already the Smithsonian's third most popular site. Well, here, right, we're talking about the National Museum of African American and Culture. So now, it's just a little weird to kind of bring this in here, right? Because this is not really non-essential information. Here it says the National Museum of African American History and Culture opened, right? The museum is already the Smithsonian's third most popular site. I mean, this is pretty important to understanding this sentence, right? Because here they're talking about the Smithsonian. So you can't just cut this part of the sentence out as they are saying you should. By doing that, you wouldn't know that it's part of the Smithsonian. So that's why I'm leaning towards A, right? If I'm just by looking at this, I would lean towards A because of the fact that, they're trying to eliminate essential information. Okay, but let's keep going. 2. Experts say that they expect this newest Smithsonian facility to welcome nearly 4 million visitors a year. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's an independent clause. There's no problems with that. No run-on, no nothing, right? So we can cross out B. The museum features more than 30,000 objects, including Muhammad Ali's boxing gloves and a dress sewn by Rosa Parks. Again, pretty straightforward, independent clause, nothing you could really pick out there. So C is also wrong. And D. A commemorative copy of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was written in 1863 during the presidency of Abraham Lincoln, is also available for viewing at the museum. Well, again, there's nothing really wrong here. It's just an independent clause. This, right, is just adding on. This is non-essential information, right? But it's just like if you read it out naturally, it makes sense to pause there, right? This comma naturally makes sense here. It's kind of like signaling a pause. So again, there's nothing wrong with D. There's nothing wrong with 2, 3, or 4. And so by process of elimination, the answer must be A. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. I hope this helped you understand the different types of punctuation. As always, if you have any questions, please, leave them in the comments. And we'll see you next week.